Hi, welcome to Ammosmith.com. Today we're going to show you how to install the consistent crimp arm and get it oriented right so when you apply pressure to it, the torque feature works on the arm. It's pretty simple to set up, and we're going to go through what we're going to be doing with it, and we're going to give you a quick tutorial on how it actually works. Okay, the adapter, which is this guy right here, replaces your standard arm that's on your press, either if it's on the right side or the left side. On some presses it allows you to mount your arm on either or. On the RCBS here we only have a choice on the right side. So there's a spring detent right here that locks the arm into place, and when you put it on the right side you want this spring detent here facing 9 o'clock on the position of the press. That's in order to get the crimp arm to go in the direction you want it to go in order to get the crimp feature to work. Installing the crimp arm is pretty easy. You just drop your crimp arm on there, depress the button in far enough to where it'll allow the crimp arm to slide on there, turn it until it locks, then you're set. Now what you want to do is set up the ram on your press in order to get the optimum use out of it without exerting too much pressure on your cases. What we're going to be using is the Lee collet dies for neck sizing, which also comes with their factory crimp die. Fairly easy to work. And what's nice about these is not only can you use their factory crimp die, you can also use our collet die for sizing. This is really interesting because what this allows us to do is control the amount of neck tension on the case as well as the amount of tension we put on the crimp. So we're going to show you both. But what's critical is where this arm is positioned. You cannot have it at the full cam over. It will still do the torque function. However, once it reaches that point of the cam over, there is so much pressure exerted that whatever advantage the torque arm would have given you is gone, because the amount of pressure exponentially increased. So here's what we do. You take your die. We're just going to use the factory crimp die for an example here. You run it down until it comes in contact with the shell holder. You notice that we have quite a bit of space yet left here. And so what I'm doing is I bring the arm back down, and so I'm not even close. Well, I'm about maybe 3/4 away of full cam over, and that little bit allows me to control how much torque I'm putting on this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition the camera, and for those of you who don't know, I want to show you how this factory crimp die works. And it works pretty much the same way as the collet neck sizing die, but at least on this one we'll be able to see it from the top. What we have here is the factory crimp die, and I want you to notice here how it's sectioned into quarters. This is where it comes together. I'm going to move the ram up. Now watch when it comes in contact with the collet itself. As we push on it, it closes. See how that works? It's a really ingenious idea. Then when we put the torque on there, we can hear that it does its thing. Now I'm going to put a case in here that we got a dummy run that we put together for instructional purposes. So when we see the case go up into the die, we'll notice that the bullet pops through it. Then the neck, the very last part of the neck goes in there. That's where this applies the crimp. Very handy, and it's very accurate. The nice thing is we can adjust this in 5-pound increments, and this allows us to precisely control exactly what we're doing with our crimp. We can also do this with the collet sizing die too. I'm going to set that one up right now. Okay, we got the collet die for the 7mm Magnum. We're going to be trying this with different calibers too as we go along with this. And we want to set it up the same way that we set it up for the factory crimp die. We don't want this thing to fully cam over. And the reason is we want to control how much tension we're putting on the neck. So not only can we control the amount of neck tension on the bullet for its release, we can also control the exact amount of tension that we're putting on the crimp. So this is going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to see a lot of interesting things with it. Here we got a case here. It's just a range pickup brass, and here's one I've already worked with. Once we bring this up, well, I want to be able to just control how much of the tension we have on here. Let me get my primer catch here. So as we run the case up, it ejects the primer, and then we precisely exerted enough pressure on here to close this up. Here's the key. Now, with this die here, we know that different cases have different neck thicknesses and so on. We're not going to really modify these cases like neck turning them yet. We are going to get into that. But here's what we want to do. With any case, doesn't matter whose it is, each firearm has a different chamber cut dimension. Even the amount of chamber wear is different. So what you want to do is take a bullet and see if you can press it into the case. If you can easily slide the bullet in there like I can here, you want to add a little bit more pressure to your torque arm. And the way we do that is we take the torque arm, there's a collar we pull back, and we turn it until it locks. Clockwise tightens, counterclockwise lightens the amount of tension you're putting on here. So next, we take the same case, run it back up until we get it right where we want it. Now, some of you are going to be using this for making target ammunition, which is pretty much what I'm doing. And once you get to where you want it, to where it'll hold the bullet without it slipping out or sliding into the case under recoil when you get it in the magazine, what we're going to do is we're going to take several rounds. We're going to do them lots of 5, for starters, and we're going to increase it by 5 pounds, going up to the point where we think we're adding too much. Probably as we go, we're going to find out which is the optimum amount to hold the bullet for the best bullet release. And then we're going to do the same thing with the factory crimp die. And what we want to do with the factory crimp die and with this die here is we want to be able to take notes, because each firearm you'll be using is going to be different, as with each caliber, and keeping good notes will at least tell you where you need to set your consistent crimp arm on the amount of tension you're putting on your lead collet sizer and your factory crimp die. Very simple. So I'm going to grab some more brass, and we're going to go through and seat a couple bullets, and we're going to take some ammunition I've already got put together, and we're going to add a crimp to it. Well, we got some more brass, and this is something I want to emphasize with you guys. We've got 2 different brands of brass here. I got Remington and I got Federal. You want to sort your brass by brand at the very least, and the reason is each company uses a slightly different metallurgic formula for making their actual brass. So the amount of tension it would take to retain a bullet with, say, the Federal as versus the Remington is going to be different. And I got the mix up right now just because I want to show you how this thing works. with the consistent crimp arm is exactly that, consistency. And you want to be consistent in everything you do. And that goes from the brand of your brass to the amount of tension you're putting on the necks. Everything is consistency here. And part of what we're going to be experimenting with is we got two rifles we're going to be using. We're going to be using a Remington 700 standard. It's an older 7mm Magnum, and I have a Weatherby Vanguard, which is the entry-level Weatherby, which is built on a Howa 1500 action. And we're going to be doing some loads with both rifles, and we're going to be using the exact same load with the same bullet, but we're using two different rifles so we can compare which rifle likes what setting the best, and that's why we're going to be taking notes on it. And we're not going to be using any match bullets. This is just Remington bulk bullets here. What weight are these? These are Remington 150 grain pointed soft points with a cannelure. And we're going to be using some Sierra bullets as well. However, these bullets are boat tail and they do not have a cannelure, so you're going to want, on every bullet, you want to reset your consistent crimp arm to the very beginning of what you're doing as your setting, so that no matter what you do, you're going to have a good place to start over. Because if you set it for a crimp with a cannelured bullet, that cannelure is going to take a lot more of the neck into the case or into the bullet than it would with a plain or non-cannelured bullet. So let's go ahead and size a couple of these, and I'm going to set this out a little bit just so we can kind of get an idea of what we're dealing with. All right, here goes the Federal case. Let's run it up. Primary ejects. And we should have a little bit of neck tension on here. Not bad. That's for the Federal case. Let's take, is it the Federal? No, that was the Remington case. Let's do the Federal case. Now it's on the exact same crimp setting, or the torque setting. They're pretty close. Although the Federal case, I can push the bullet in a lot easier with my hand. And on the Remington case, I can't. So you can see there's a difference between, right out the bat, on the same torque setting on the consistent crimp arm with the two different brands of cases. And it tells you two things. One, the wall thickness or the thickness of the necks are different, and also more than likely that the metallurgy in the two cases are also different. So now let's go ahead and take the sizing die out, and we're going to put the seating die in, and we're going to seat a bullet. Now we got the seating die here, and we want to do the same thing. We don't want to when you take your seating die, you want to set this up to where, let me go like this real quick. When you set up your seating die, you want to set it up to where you're not using the roll crimp that's already built into this die. You only want to use the seating portion of this die. So we're going to back this out some. And you want to run your case up. And the reason why you want to run your case up, and you want the arm at full cam over, and the reason is, when you tighten your die down here, you want to do it to where it stops. And this is where the roll crimp feature inside this die is starting to engage the cartridge case right here. And when this happens, what you want to be able to do is back it out just a little bit, so it's only going to seat and it's not going to put any pressure whatsoever on the mouth of the case. So you see we have it stopped. Now we're going to back out quarter turn. Then we're going to set the lock on it. And we're done. You don't want to feel any tension whatsoever on your case neck. Now you go ahead and seat a bullet. See, I already got one seated here. I'm going to go ahead and index this out. I just run this down until it contacts the bullet, and that gives me my basic overall length for this particular bullet here. Running up, you'll find that you don't need a lot of pressure to do this. And we can see here that it's seated, and what we need to do is apply the crimp. Now, depending on how much crimp you want is going to depend greatly on the amount of torque you have this thing set for. So I'm going to seat 2 bullets, and we're going to do 2 crimps, and we're going to have them set at 2 different levels altogether. Not that one. We're not going to mess with overall length quite a bit yet. We're going to do that later on. And we can also adjust where the bullets are going to be positioned on top of the lands and grooves. All right, let's go ahead and set up the factory crimp die. Once you set up your factory crimp die, there's no need to change it at all. The only changes you're going to make is on your torque, on your consistent crimp arm. So when we bring this thing down, we should still be, you know, 3/4 of the way there before full cam over. I'm going to back this out a little bit, and I'm going to crimp 1 bullet, then I'm going to add about another 10 pounds of torque, and then we're going to do a couple close-ups on these so I can show you the real difference between what we're doing. Here goes the first one. This is with the cantilevered 150 grain Remington pointed soft point. So I want to set that particular setting, and now I'm going to add some weight to this. Yeah, just a tiny bit more. I want to make it a little bit more exaggerated. Okay, now we got the 2 extremes. We got the beginning of the crimp, and we got an over-exaggerated crimp. I'm going to reset up the camera, and we're going to look at them real close. Okay. Now the bullet on the left, I just got this hand seated in here on one that I just barely sized, just so it'll retain the bullet. And I want to show you that we see there's no crimp, and we see fully see the cantilever. On the middle one, we have a light crimp, and on the one on the right here, we have a more pronounced crimp because I added about another 10 pounds, 15 pounds to it. And we just, it may be hard to see, but the subtleties are there. Here we can barely see that it's crimped, and here we can see a more radiused edge here with more of a aggressive crimp. This is the nice thing about this particular setup, is the fact that we can control it exactly, and we can do it in 5-pound increments. Basically what you want to do is you're going to take a load that works okay for you right now, And then you're going to play with the amount of neck tension, which is in the portion of this full neck here, for the amount of bullet pull. Then we're going to set the amount of crimp in order to retain the bullet in there, regardless of whether it's a cantilevered or non-cantilevered bullet. Also, this thing will work well with cast bullets too. Cast bullets are a lot more sensitive to deformation than a jacketed bullet, so we can easily control the amount of crimp on there. And for that, we're going to be using a 30-06 and a 308. So thanks for watching, and we're going to do some range tests as the weather clears up where I'm at, and show you what it does on paper.